So here we are at last, one final Grand Prix to wrap up the year, and I have absolutely no idea what to do for this bit. I mean, I could talk about the title, but that would probably piss someone off. I could mention 2021, but that would piss even more people off. I could plug my podcast, Talk Shift. No, actually, no one listens to that either. This is really underwhelming, isn't it? Guess we should just roll that intro then.
That's rude.
Hey there guys, I'm Will, and welcome to the Comedy Review, the show that would come out more quickly if the presenter took a break from eating everything, or if he didn't get pissed out of his mind watching qualifying in the pub last night. It's also the show where we talk about things that happen in motorsport. Things like this. Mercedes wave off some old flaps. This Williams mechanic joins the Third Reich. And AI-generated content has gone way too far. For one last time this year, we have a fair bit to talk about. Starting, well, with the obvious. The 2025 Formula One season kicked off 266 days ago, and, well, quite a lot has changed. We all thought this season would be a straight fight between McLaren and Ferrari. We all thought Lewis Hamilton was still a good Formula One driver. We all thought Yuki Tsunoda had a long and successful F1 career ahead of him. Even that tastes like milk this week. What we were left with may have been very different to what we all imagined going into the year, but as we go into the final round at Abu Dhabi, we have a three-way title fight. The Bottle Rangers and Sid from Ice Age dueling it out to see who wins the world's most expensive fleshlight. So what content creator would I be if I didn't set the ground rules coming into this one? Put simply, if Nasser finishes on the podium, he wins no matter what. If for some reason that doesn't happen, teammate Oscar Piastri would need to finish in the top two to keep his title hopes alive, and Verstappen in the top three. But as I write this on Sunday morning, it's going to take a McLaren mega bottle for the Brits not to leave Abu Dhabi as world champion. Good thing we haven't had any of those recently. The big question walking into this one was whether McLaren chose to implement team orders if it allowed one of their drivers to take the title from Max. Both Norris and Piastri rubbishing said claims in the Thursday press conferences, only for McLaren to immediately call bullshit on themselves as papaya rules were officially burnt at the stake to the joy of, well, let's be honest, everybody. Red Bull were also in the news this week, announcing their driver lineups for 2026. Arvid Lindblad will partner Liam Lawson at VCarb. Max Verstappen's latest sex toy was revealed as 21-year-old Frenchman Isaac Hadjar, with Yuki Tsunoda falling short of next year's grid, spending it locked in Red Bull's simulator room with the decomposing corpse of ex-teammate Daniel Ricciardo. I made a video going into more detail on that earlier this week if you're interested, but that wasn't the only headline surrounding the Milton Keynes-based squad after Qatar. As it turns out, motorsport advisor Helmut Marko was a world-renowned which is ironic considering he lacks the depth of one. That's not really breaking news, but Specsavers here caused uproar this week, accusing Kimi Antonelli of deliberately allowing Lando Norris through at the end of the Qatar Grand Prix, leading to an army of social media mouth breathers tormenting the young Italian on Instagram. Antonelli was forced to black out his profile, and Red Bull published an apology statement, which was quite impressive really, considering they managed to do so without the use of the word sorry. Anyway, should we move on and get to FP1? Friday kicked off as one might expect in Abu Dhabi, mass panic as the 10 teams realised they still needed to run some fresh fetuses, leading to an opening session resembling something more akin to Gary Glitter's dungeon. Among the new arrivals were Pato O'Ward, who took up title contender Oscar Piastri's seat, which I'm sure won't piss off anyone whatsoever, VTEC Logan Sargent, Luke Browning driving for Williams, Alpine reject Paul Aaron filling in for Alpine, and latest Super Formula champion Naoyumo Iwasa getting as close as he'll ever get to Formula One as he hopped in the shoes of Liam Lawson. Ryo Hirakawa was back for Haas, following the announcement of Toyota becoming a title sponsor in 2026, and Yuki Tsunoda found himself replaced by potential future Yuki Tsunoda, Arvid Lindblad, as he got a go in his Red Bull. Ferrari have been wishing they had two Leclercs in the car for most of this year, and an FP1 would get their wish, as Hamilton was swapped out for Charles' brother Arto once again, this causing absolute chaos for the drivers' race engineers, though judging from last week they still seem to think Bottas is on the grid, so I'd say they're f***ed either way. Most interesting of these debutants lied with Aston Martin, who had to delegate both cars to rookies, Jack Crawford the logical choice on one side of the garage, though for their second machine came a bit of a problem. You see, Test and reserve driver Felipe Drogovic had got so disillusioned wiping the arse of Lawrence Stroll, he's opted to subjugate himself to the perils of the vacuum cleaner world championship instead. And that meant Aston Martin needed to find someone else to fill their driving duties for Friday morning, eventually settling on Lord Farquaad here. This is Cian Shields, familiar to those who watch Formula 2 and enjoy paying particular attention to the bottom corner of the timing tower. The Scotsman sat 24th in the standings in a championship that only fields 22 cars. F1 were kind enough to outline his full racing pedigree on the broad broadcast, just in case you thought there may be some reason why Aston have decided to parachute him in, other than to test possible new locations for a chicane around Abu Dhabi's layout. Unsurprisingly, Farquhar would prop up the competitive order yet again, before going back to do what he did best in Formula 2. On the other end of proceedings, Lando Norris was looking awfully comfortable in his McLaren, taking top spot from Verstappen, the Dutchman claiming his car was broken, quote, everywhere, which is about as useful as Anne Frank's drum kit. With anything remotely sexual banned in Qatar, Charles Leclerc was eager to show off his arsehole once again at the hairpin, the spin prompting a snide remark from brother Arthur, who, if he focused less on the TV screens, might just have been good enough to make it to Formula 1. Anyway, we'd wrap up FP1 coverage with Paul Aaron showing Alpine where they didn't pick him for 2026, and our standard display of McLaren almost bottles, even though War getting in on the action as the morning session came to an end. With Oscar Piastri more or less summing that one up for us, he was at least back behind the wheel for FP2, and immediately getting reacquainted with his McLaren, as well as all the painted runoff areas. Norris and Verstappen weren't without incident either, the pair having to avoid each other out of turn 1. This of course being picked up on social media like Verstappen had just murdered Baku Cat or something. Hamilton was back in his Ferrari and trying to make up for lost time, seen carefully replicating Leclerc's lines from first practice. Problem was, he'd just picked the wrong one. Anyway, a Colapinto off would round this one up for us. Norris again topping Verstappen at the top of the times. As for Piastri, you know what, actually I just don't want to talk about that. It's our final Expel end of the week then, and as I was trawling through the nominations, looking for our next papaya victim, I ended up finding something even better. About an hour ago, I was surrounded by 10 to 15 Hamilton fans. With knives. For the thing, it seems like Mick MV33 here simply decided to take a holiday into the heart of London. I won't go into detail about what happened, but I'm still alive and I didn't beg for forgiveness or run away. Crikey, look at this hard man. You're so brave and tough, man. Where's the victim card? Did this happen? No. No, but in yellow. Me with the Argentinian fan base. No, that's not my burner account. Big up to this guy for the suggestion, and if you'd like to nominate the next Expel end of the week, use the hashtag on screen, tag me on the platform, or just join the Discord server. Now, on to Saturday. Oh look, it's something for the Lewis Hamilton fans.
It's a late lunge by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race!
So now the 6-year-olds have kindly f***ed off, I can reveal I was actually just being kind, as hashtag Washed was back in action for FP3 and straight into the tyre barriers.
Crofty, he's trying to put in reverse. Shall we tell him he's missing a tyre?
Jesus man, I think he's already dead. As Hamilton went on to become the most useful he's been all year as he tidied up the crash site, only to promptly tell this cameraman to shove his lens up his rectum, the 19 other more competent drivers were still turning laps, Yuki Tsunoda preparing for his run plan on Sunday as he practiced killing Lando Norris. Kimi Antonelli was another getting into trouble, getting his own back on Helmut Marko by driving into the side of Tsunoda later in the session. Problem was, knowing Marko, he probably enjoyed that. As for the championship fight, none of the contenders would find their way to the top spot in FP3, that position instead being claimed by Mercedes' George Russell, setting us up for a thrilling qualifying with everything to play for, and very little guaranteed. Well, apart from Hamilton going out in Q1. That made the Briton the first driver to qualify 16th in an Abu Dhabi title decider since Nicholas Latifi. The Hamilton fans have not taken too kindly to that one. Joining him in the drop zone were the two Alpines, Hulkenberg and Albon. Tsunoda just hanging on in 15th, pretty important as he'll be rather crucial later on. The big shock from Q2 was Kimi Antonelli, only 14th fastest by the flag and out-qualified by the likes of Bortoletto in the Pukemobile and Fernando Alonso, whose dementia's gone so bad he decided just to not show up to his fan commitments this weekend. Either that or maybe he just doesn't give a f***. Le Beguet would also surprise for Haas as he reminded us how he still existed by slotting into 9th, and with that, all was left to decide was the top 10 shootout. All evidence was pointing to this being the Norris show, the Bristol dominant throughout Friday. After the first set of runs, however, the McLaren garage was oddly silent, almost as if Oscar was the one that got pole. He was ahead of Norris, though ahead of both of them was Max Verstappen, the Dutchman coming out of nowhere to go 3/10 faster than the McLarens in a lap that, while we didn't know it yet, would already be good enough to take pole. Nosso would pip his teammate to second at the end, as any hopes of George Russell spoiling the party was dashed by this diarrhea moment out of the final turn. Max Verstappen then was on pole for the title decider, and the real question was, how the hell had he done that? Well, the answer, as it turned out, was Yuki Tsunoda, the Japanese driver rewarded for being competent for once, by means of being turned into Verstappen's toe slave for the entirety of Q3, a role by the looks of things he looks completely thrilled about. I suppose then we should flick over to December 7th, 2025. Actually, December 7th, that seems familiar somehow. Hang on. Oh my god. Sunday would open with Alpine out in the inner complexities of their Formula 1 car, safe in the knowledge that this was the end of the era for these technical regulations, and they were Alpine, so no one's copying that shit anyway. Let's get down to business though. As we all readied the bottle counter, it turns out we wouldn't need it. Norris holding on to second and not dropping like a stone that we've grown accustomed to in 2025. Oscar Piastri wasn't going down without a fight though, sticking with his teammate and sweeping around the outside of turn 9. I wonder how the Lando fans took that one. Not very well then. Fernando Alonso, meanwhile, had decided to poke his nose into areas it definitely didn't belong, fighting with Leclerc for P4, which is either a huge compliment to the team at Aston Martin, or further proof that the SF25 deserves to die. The Spaniard could only play competent for so long, however, and soon enough, George Russell was on his tail. Meanwhile, Leclerc used this as an opportunity to run away and start chasing after Norris in third. The Briton was apparently in complete control at this stage of the race, which I assume is why the Ferrari is able to have a look here around the outside and nearly bump him out of championship contention. All credit to Norris though, he resisted the multi-pack of bottles in this one and held his own till the next challenge, the random lottery of the McLaren pit crew. 2.1 seconds was plenty good enough to get him back on his way. Problem was, Drive to Survive had called and asked for some overtaking, which is about as plentiful in Abu Dhabi as virgins at a Taliban bachelor party. The 4-car now found itself staring down the prostate of Kimi Antonelli and several other backmarkers, but the aid of fresh rubber and the threat of F1 Twitter made these guys get out of the way fairly easily, even special if he even knew what was going on. Next up the road, however, was Yuki Tsunoda, told to do what he had to do in order to keep Lando Norris behind. Sadly, the Japanese driver is no Sergio Perez though, and the only way he knew to do that was to weave like a f***ing lunatic and push the Briton off track when he tried to make it by. With both drivers now under investigation and social media having a full-on f***ing brain aneurysm, Norris decided he'd rather have a penalty than attempt to do that again, and shot back off up the road. Sergio Perez, meanwhile, cashing in on this drama is one of the best things I've seen on this godforsaken platform. No further action was the call for Norris. Tsunoda, meanwhile, was sent the retirement gift of a 5-second penalty, which for some reason came as a shock to him. It was almost time for the second round of stops at this stage, well, apart from Oscar Piastri, who had seemingly been left to die by the McLaren pit wall, who were only reminded of his presence when Verstappen went to pass him on lap 41. The plan now was to pit the Australian onto a set of mediums, so much loved by the rest of the front runners that no one else was on them, and hope Piastri could claw back 24 seconds in 15 laps to claim the win. And look, I think I could count my victories on F1 Manager on just one hand, but even I look at that and think it's complete and utter bollocks. Verstappen himself could have opted to pit again here, back up the pack, and Prix Norris fell behind. Instead, in a very un-Verstappen move, he chose to stay out and cruise to victory, leaving any hope of him retaining the title in the hands of Charles Leclerc and the glue factory. The Ferrari, in fairness, had a lot of race pace in this one, but for a driver who, according to Sky Sports, was closing into Norris at a rate of knots, well, he didn't seem to be going anywhere. Thus, for the final 10 laps, we sat and waited to see if anything interesting would happen, which, given this was Abu Dhabi, meant we all went to sleep. There were no sudden engine failures, Nicholas Latifi didn't reappear out of the shadow realm and cause a safety car. It was all just a bit boring. Max Verstappen coming across the line to take victory, but lose the championship by just 2 points. Sure hope there isn't an instant earlier in the year where you could have picked those back up. Shit race aside, we should be giving all the credit here to Lando Norris. So many bottles accumulated over the season, yet in the end they all meant f*** all. The British driver crossed the line to become champion of the world, restore peace and order to the F1 Twitter sphere, and let us celebrate this great sport in unison. Just kidding, the Piastri mental asylum proceeded to do this.
This is for fucking Lando Norris. You might have won this year, bitch, but I promise you, you will not survive to the end of next year. I will fucking find you, and I will kill you. I will kill you. I swear.
Lando fans, perhaps I was too harsh on you. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the ex-bell end of the f***ing year. Oh no, they've blocked me. My life will never recover.
It's not fucking over. And when I find you, trust, it'll be your end. You won this year, but you will not win the next. I swear to God, I'm gonna handle you. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find you, so you better up your security, Norris. Because I swear to God, you're gonna be toast.
On the face of it, let's be honest, this race was f***ing shit. But we knew that going in. It's Abu Dhabi after all. There's still a lot to digest in this one though. Obviously the big/only moment of the race, Nossa getting away with passing off track. But even if he had got a 5-second penalty for that, I don't think it would have mattered. They're just to pull Piastri over to get the 4-car back into championship contention. Shout out should probably go to Lewis Hamilton for dragging himself back into the points and not being beaten in the standings by Antonelli, which would have been the embarrassment of the century. Fair play to Alonso for hanging on to 6th as well, plus the 2 Haas boys were also finishing in the top 10. Now people seem to think I go into hibernation in the off-season, which is not on McDonald's, I can see the comments already. But either way, it's not the case, and I've already got plenty planned before the comedy review returns in 2026. Big thank you though to anyone who's watched, subscribed, liked, or even disliked. See Norris fans, I'm including you as well. Big ups to the members and patrons who'll continue getting exclusive and early access content throughout the off-season. Links to all that are down in the description if you fancy joining the fun on that one. But now, for the final time in 2025, f*** off.